Hey everyone, this is Darren, also known as Bombadil from No Guts No Galaxy, and I'd like to welcome you to the MechWarrior Online devlog number 9. This is our chance to get to know the devs and hear directly from them on the past, present, and future of MWO. In this episode, we'll chat with Russ about the upcoming changes to the Innersphere quirk system, get some community warfare updates from Paul, and catch a few glimpses at what's going on behind the scenes at PGI. Let's jump right in with an interview with Russ Bullock, president of Piranha Games. Russ, what did you set out to achieve with the update to the Innersphere quirk system?
Well, I think it was necessary to fulfill a couple of goals. MechWarrior Online is a very ambitious project. I mean, we can compare it to past MechWarrior games as much as we want, but whether they were the classic MechWarrior titles or even the online Battletech 3025 product, MechWarrior Online has a more challenging problem to solve than any past MechWarrior game. We are set in a year 3049, but we're also not limiting the players to, in a multiplayer setting, to one of those factions. We are allowing our players to play the clan factions, the Innersphere factions, and they have to actually fight each other in a competitive way for possession of planets in community warfare. So it's very important that in a competitive game, a team of Innersphere mechs can fight against a team of clan mechs, and it can be balanced in a way that really is necessary to support a competitive product. So that's kind of the highest goal. Of course, underneath that, we have chassis that when you're looking at a real-time simulation game like MechWarrior Online, it's very difficult to make things play out like you might have experienced in pen and paper. For instance, mechs just look a certain way, so that isn't simulated by dice rolls on pen and paper as to how easy or hard it might be to shoot the center torso. Again, that's a dice roll in pen and paper, but in our game, players can put their shots where they want them. So some chassis don't play out, in a real-time simulator like they do in a turn-based pen and paper type product. So we have to take a little extra effort in personalizing these mechs and trying to keep the spirit of what it is and applying some quirks, buffs to those aspects of the mech so that it can kind of overcome some of those challenges it might have as a chassis. So the hope is, I guess the end goal is that now that these mechs have these quirks, we'll see a far greater variety of mechs on the battlefield because players will feel there's a far greater variety of mechs they can take out and be competitive in a match. That's good for everyone, just having a lot more different types of mechs on the battlefield, different strategies. How do you deal with this mech and that mech and all the things that make MechWarrior great, I think just get enhanced by this system. So whether you're playing solo queue and just the public queue, or whether you're going to really participate in community warfare, it was really important for the competitiveness of those chassis to have this new quirk system.
Can you explain how the tier list works?
Well, the tier list was established by basically players that play a lot. They're very familiar with all the chassis, and they play in a very competitive way. Now, not every player is a comp player, that plays competitively. Some of us play very casually and they really enjoy playing on the solo queue. However, the comp players, I think, are kind of the canary in the mine, right? They might be the greatest examples of min-maxing that some of us don't necessarily play that way, but still they can, sniff out what the weaknesses are and why maybe in situations just not as competitive as another chassis. So they're quite good at being able to determine exactly what tiers they belong in. So what it means is tier 1 says this is as good as a chassis gets as far as its competitiveness in the game currently. Examples being the Jenner F, right, with the 6 medium lasers. The Ember is a very good one. The Cataphract 3D. So there's a few chassis for various reasons, hardpoint loadouts and whatnot, just perform best. And then it's very logical after that, of course, tier 2, 3, 4, and 5. Mechs tiers 1 and 2 in particular are very competitive, of course. 3 is still very in the right hands. Some people might argue that, some we put in 3 really are 2s because they're still very good mechs. Tier 4 and 5, however, are mechs that some of us really enjoy. The look of them, the feel of them, and what they represent, but you just have a much harder time being competitive with them. So I guess it's as simple as that. It's a ranking system of where the chassis fits in a competitive sense. So it's not like it's a debatable thing. Sometimes someone will feel like a chassis should be up or down, and it's based on play style. But I think it gives us an accurate enough interpretation to put out an initial pass of the quirks. Obviously, we can do a complete reassessment once those new quirks have had a couple weeks to soak in.
How do you choose which mechs get which quirks?
Well, the tier system, of course, determines how many quirks a mech gets. Tier 5 getting 5. And because jump jets and ECM add so much use to a mech in our product, that if they had one of those items, we removed the quirk. And that's how we're doing it, at least with this initial pass. So after that, we separated mechs out into brawler, skirmisher, and support. And it's just what you think it means. Brawler's the closest range, skirmisher's the medium range, and support is primarily long range weapons. And so once we had a mech in a tier and applied a category to it that made the most sense, for instance, if we saw a mech with hard points that really lean towards long range weapons, LRMs, AC2, and further, then of course that mech would be categorized as support. And so, but if it played out to AC20s and SRMs, then it would go into the brawler category. So once we had them in a tier, we had them in a category, and we knew the number of quirks they could have, then it was quite easy to then apply the number of quirks it got within the category that it was listed. A lot of people have asked us why we made the decisions we did on how we categorize mechs. For instance, some mechs follow logic as though we stuck to the stock loadouts. So you look at the Awesome 8Q and we gave it PPC quirks, which really makes sense from a stock perspective. But then you'll look at another mech and you'll see that we really didn't follow the stock loadout at all. One example might be even the stock loadout we gave our Dragon 5N champion, which uses a Gauss rifle and 2 regular large lasers. Although we knew that some of the stock loadouts, or even many of the stock loadouts in our game, whether champion mechs or the original stock loadouts, would be not in sync with the quirks that the mech had, we felt it was important, or most important, to look at the mech from the perspective of its hard points in relation to the rest of its variants, and try to figure out what would make the mech most competitive, rather than look at what quirks make the most sense for its stock loadout. Sometimes the stock loadout worked and synced up very well with the quirks that we thought it should have, but in other cases, when we look at the dragons, for instance, the Dragon 5N has 3 ballistic hardpoints, whereas the 1N only has a single ballistic hardpoint. So even though the Champion 5N had a Gauss rifle, it made a lot more sense to allow the players to make the best use of those hardpoints, and that would be the way that we could move it up from tier 5 the furthest. So in that case, we decided to focus on autocannon 2 for the 5N, Gauss for the 1N, and there's many examples throughout all the mechs like that. The Centurions, which come with LRM on stock loadouts, was not, in our opinion, the best way to become competitive with a Centurion. I'm sure there are players that do really well with those LRM loadouts, but with the type of mech that a Centurion is, it's much more of a brawler skirmisher, based on its mobility and mobility profile, and weapon hardpoints. So there's a lot of brawler and skirmisher type of weapon quirks rather than support based like LRMs, which line up with its stock loadouts. So there's many examples we could go through, but that is some of the logic we used when creating these quirks.
Will there be more changes or additions to the quirk system in the future?
Absolutely. I think this initial pass was really just that. It's the initial full pass, and I think it was important for us to create a rule set and to define the mechs into tiers and into categories to allow us to put this huge undertaking of significant quirks into all the mechs and all the chassis. I think moving forward, we'd like to do another pass on movement, mobility, torso twisting, all those other types of quirks. We've got access to more and more types than we had even when we began this pass. So I'd like to continue down this path and to even start to personalize each chassis even more than we have it currently. And then of course, the clan mechs, they're going to require a quirk pass as well. So we're definitely excited and looking forward to working on that. So I think we'll be able to move along much quicker now that we've done a significant amount of work both on the engineering side to create all the various types of quirks we have, the game mech editing tools we created to help this process, and getting this initial wave plugged in. I think will allow us to iterate on these quirks much quicker in the future. So I think this is not only just the initial pass. I just think the quirk system really is a main part of our mech building process and MechWarrior Online, from this moment forward.
Next, we'll take a quick look at the new Inner Sphere Resistance Collection, which includes the Panther Light Battle Mech, the Enforcer Medium Battle Mech, the Grasshopper Heavy Battle Mech, and the Zeus Assault Battle Mech. Also included is the bonus King Crab Assault Battle Mech for those who purchase either the Resistance Collection Wrath Pack, the Clan Invasion Massacre Collection, or the Clan Invasion Wave 2 Man of War Collection before December 16th. The Resistance Collection also includes various rewards, such as badges, titles, faction packs, and premium time. For all the details, head on over to MWOmercs.com. And finally, Paul, lead designer at Piranha Games, gives us an updated look into the development of Community Warfare.
So, the next Community Warfare update. Well, first thing I'd like to talk about is the opt-in feature of Community Warfare. This is the fact that you're clicking the faction button at the top of the screen. That's you actually accepting the terms that you're going to be going into this role-playing kind of hardcore mode of the Inner Sphere versus the clans, the Inner Sphere versus, the interior house conflicts that are going on between the houses. There's also fights going on between the clans, and this is your opportunity to say, yes, I want to be part of that. On day one, you're going to be selecting a faction as soon as you click on the faction tab. It's going to bring up a series of screens that show you all the factions. It's going to give you some lore background. It'll give you a more informative method of choosing which house or which clan you want to align with. From that point on, you're going to be given a set of contracts with those factions, whether it be a house or a clan. And those contracts have different terms. Now, what I mean by terms is just the amount of time that you'll be spent locked to that faction. If you accept a contract with House Davian, it could be a 1-month contract, it could be a 2-month contract, 4-month contract. If you take a 1-month contract, at the end of 1 month, it is up to you whether you want to continue on with House Davian or if you want to switch to a different faction. To keep in mind though, is that those numbers are up for tuning. So we will be watching what's going on. We'll be taking feedback as the feature starts playing out, and we'll adjust as needed. So one of the things that you can actually intertwine with what I just mentioned about faction selection is that you will be able to switch factions. This includes switching from Inner Sphere to clan. The primary reason for this is that we don't want to lock players in for too long unless they are that die-hard house loyalist or clan loyalist, where they will just have to be part of House Karita, for example, for their entire experience of Community Warfare. That option is there, but everyone else will be able to switch. We just don't want people to be switching willy-nilly, right? We want people to make a conscious decision of joining a house. When it comes to interfaction combat, what we're going to be dealing with is the conflicts that are happening between the houses and between the clans. Now that means the fighting that's been going on between House Davian and House Kurita, that's between Steiner and Merrick. Those are the interfaction conflicts that we're talking about. The other side, on the clan side, you have Jade Falcon versus Wolf, and you have Ghost Bear and Smoke Jaguar going at it. And all players who partake in community warfare will be able to partake in those conflicts. When it comes to taking over a planet, planets are going to be divided into what we call zones right now. That's just a placeholder name. On each planet, for example, there will be 11 zones. That means in order to take over that planet, you have to capture 6 of those 11 zones. That's what an individual match is fighting over a zone. Now, when a zone changes hands, for example, if House Steiner is invading House Merrick and they're fighting over a planet that's on their border, if House Steiner takes over 6 of those zones, at the end of that flip period, which we currently have set for 24 hours, that planet will end up in House Steiner territory. Now, if House Merrick defends 6 out of those 11 zones, House Merrick will retain their planet and Steiner will basically have to try attacking it again. When it comes to Planetary Conquest game modes, the first one that we're going to be coming out the door with, we've talked about, is called Invasion. That's the code name for it right now. Invasion is on an asymmetric map. There is a set of objectives that is halfway through that map that have to be completed for the attackers in order to proceed into the defending territory. Inside the defending territory is a base. If the attackers are able to destroy that base, that is when they're going to win that match. Now, something that's going to be happening during this game mode are a set of reinforcements that are going to be brought in through dropships. Now, this is the infamous dropship mode that you've been hearing about and waiting for, which allows you to bring up to 4 different mechs into the match. And as you basically get your mech blown up, you'll be able to drop in with another mech of your choice from the pack of 4 that you've created before.
And that concludes the MWO Dev vlog number 9. Be sure to stay tuned for future vlogs, including more information on the development of MechWarrior Online, community spotlights, and the exciting future of the MWO competitive scene. And on behalf of Piranha Games and No Guts No Galaxy, thank you for watching, and until next time, Mech Warriors.